And that root can start to draw up from earth the nourishment to come into your being. Coming up through the feet, the legs, and coming to connect and start to be embodied in the pelvis. So as we start to connect now into the pelvis, for the women in the group, it's 4 to 5 inches below the belly button. For the men, it's about 2 to 3 inches below the belly button, the pelvic center, and moving inward, moving towards the center, even towards the back of the pelvis, the sacrum, that bone in the back of the pelvis. And this space in our body, this pelvic center, it's there regardless of whether you do or don't have all the organs there. Still a space in your body inside this pelvic bowl that's defined by your hip bones, by your belly in the front, the pelvic floor on the bottom, and coming up the back, the sacrum up to the back of the waist, that area, and we're right in the middle of it. And the energy coming up from earth, from that root that we sent down, from that connection, is just coming right up into your pelvic center and starting to build up the natural glow and orb that's there. And some of you might want to do a little bit of rocking, tilting and tucking, cat and cow kind of movements with your pelvis. And that's another way just to keep activating and charging up. So when we really connect deep into the pelvis, we're going to have a sense of being present. This is how we drop into feeling more connected, secure, and the message goes up through the nervous system up to the brain saying we're more safe. Noticing your breathing. You can let the tip of your tongue come up to the roof of your mouth and rest there just gently. You can let a gentle smile come up through your body, onto your face, your inner joy starting to radiate out. Good. And then let's start coming up a little further into the body as we start to draw more energy in from earth through the pelvis and come up to the center of the chest, called the heart center, even though your physical heart's 3 or so inches to the left. And sometimes it helps to actually place a hand over the heart center. And we're going to let ourselves sink in here. Just like we did in the pelvis, we're going to go from the outside and draw your awareness in 2, 3 inches towards the spine, towards your shoulder blades. And just letting that beautiful flow of energy from Mother Earth coming up through our bodies, through the pelvis, and now coming right up to your heart center. Then we can let it radiate out. And one more step, let's let our awareness, this inner guide, come right up to the center of your head, inside the center of your head. Go from your third eye, that point in the middle of your forehead, and draw your awareness inward. From your 2 temples, and draw your awareness inward, where all those lines, points come together. That's the center of the head. You can almost imagine the eyeballs turning inward to look and focus to this point. Be thoughtful if your chin has started to migrate up, just let it soften down a little bit towards your heart. See if you can soften the shoulders down away from the earlobes. And just feel the connection to that center of your head. This place of great imagination, potential, desires. And let your awareness come back down to the heart center. So there's a lovely connection between these points, the head, the heart. And going a little deeper, deeper, deeper into that pelvic center. So this is your inner channel, your etheric tube, your vertical core. And this is how you can organize yourself, by drawing your awareness into these centers, pelvis, heart, head. So you can feel more in your body, embodied. You can let the energy come up from earth to feed and restore and charge and give more flow of the vital force through your being. Noticing your breathing. Feeling what you're connected to, what's below you. Have a sense of what's in front of you, the future, what's to come, what's behind you, your past, your memories, what's to the left of you, your feminine, your heart, your feeling. To the right of you, your liver, the masculine, action. That which is above you, universe, spirit. And again, Mother Earth below us. So here you are, organized over your central points, pelvis, heart, head, aware of all that's around you, connected to your breath. Gentle smile on your face. And then just let your hands come together. You can bring them in front of your heart or anywhere. We'll just conclude with metta, loving kindness meditation. May I be well, and my heart be filled with loving kindness. May I have ease in mind and body and thoughts. May I be happy and at peace. Namaste, peace, shalom. And when you feel ready, just gently let your eyes open. Ready for our exciting astrological presentation.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you, my dear. That was lovely.
Thank you. Thank you.
I feel good and grounded. Okay. And my focus was going to be on the Mars retrograde that's coming up in September. And you may be thinking, why is she talking about that now? But, oh, and chat's open if you want to say anything in chat, or I see folks are thanking Janice with gratitude. And the reason I'm talking about it now is that 2020 is such an amazing year, and not really a year necessarily we would have voluntarily signed up for, but of course we all did, because we've chosen to be incarnate at this point in time. So therefore we are part of the architecture of the new reality that's in the process of being created. So how do we get there? In order to create new realities, things have to end. Things have to be broken apart. Things have to be raised. Things have to find their way out, complete. And so 2020 is a process of so much of that going on. I'm not going to talk very in depth about everything that happens in 2020. If you want to know more, I've been doing videos on it, writing about it. I can send you where to find out more, or you can always ask me questions. So basically, the shorthand is that in early January, we had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, very brief, but Saturn is about structure, how things are built, our discipline, and our limitations. And Pluto is about irrevocable transformation, and power, wealth. So when these two planets are in total alignment, things start to change. And even though it's very quick, we've seen that actually at the time of the conjunction, that's when the coronavirus news was coming into the United States, and that's one piece of it. But it's bigger than that. The pandemic is it's symbolic of so many things. And again, not to just sort of go down that rabbit hole, because what I want to talk about are the retrogrades. And Venus was retrograde in the spring. Basically, what happened was from April 3rd to August 7th, she will be in the sign of Gemini. And this retrograde process has taken us through an assessment of what we value. And because in the sign of Gemini, Gemini has to do with neighborhood. Your neighborhood can be Yonkers, as we were talking about earlier, or it can be the world, depending on how global a traveler you are. And since we are in this reality that's in a very interconnected world, our neighborhood, our conception and perception of our neighborhood needs to shift to global. And what we see is reaction where there's nationalism, separation, because people want to contain, they don't want to connect. And basically, we are in the processing still of what we've learned from that Venus in Gemini and retrograde. And one of the things we, of course, learned was, do you wear a mask or don't you wear a mask? Do you care about your neighbors or don't you care about your neighbors? So and it's muddy in many different layers, because there are people within the holistic community who say, you know, masks are not really the answer, and I'm not going to go there either, but I'm just going to reiterate, this is about communication. It's about, Gemini is about how we speak to one another, how we get our points across. If I truly believe one thing, am I really going to convince you by repeating that thing? Or are we going to get some more common ground by finding what we do agree on and the depth of our listening? And with Mars going retrograde, because Venus and Mars, they're the planets that symbolize how we love, how we express desire. Venus is what makes us feel harmonious? What are we attracted to? How do we feel connected? And so many of us are feeling emotionally starved right now. Some of us don't get to hug. Some of us don't get to sit down with close friends and kibitz or talk. Some of us are feeling very bereft from the things that make us feel love or harmony. And so it's an evaluation period. What do I care about? How lax have I been with my communication and friends? And as Venus continues to move through Gemini, we can continue to reassess that. So Mars, we are approaching the shadow point of where Mars will retrograde and then come back. And Mars, one reason it's very significant this year is that it will be retrograde in the sign of Aries. So it's going to be in Aries for a crazy amount of time. And Aries is one of the signs naturally linked to the planet Mars. Mars, the big red planet, was seen as the home of the war god. Mars is about desire, how we assert ourselves, how we how we get angry is signified by where Mars is positioned in your horoscope. So Mars starts to go retrograde on September 9th, and then it goes direct on November 14th. And I will be writing more and doing videos about the election because I know a lot of people are concerned or asking me about that all the time. But what's significant is that when Mars is in any sign and it's retrograde, we feel a sense of delays. We're not moving forward in the way we like. And for some of us, it's particularly challenging. So let's look at, I'm going to share screen and show you the picture of Mars retrograde. And I know some of you may have no idea what this means, but Donald Trump, because he's the leader of the United States, what he experiences by transit can signify what is happening to the United States. And Donald Trump has Mars rising. He was born with Mars rising. You know, he wears his hair kind of like a helmet, and he's a very aggressive person, in your face kind of person. That Mars rising people are not always that harsh. It depends on other pieces about who they are and what the significance is. He's Leo rising. So it's a lot about me, I, ego that's getting pushed out all the time. He's not going to be comfortable at all when Mars is retrograde, because that means he's getting delayed. He's pulling back. He's not able to move in his comfort zone. But it's also significant about the United States. And what I see, so it means that the United States will be feeling a sense of delay and pulling back. And with the Mars retrograde and in the sign of Aries, it's going to keep moving. Here's the picture of the retrograde. So that's when it begins, September 9th at 28 degrees Aries. And as it moves, it's going to be in square to Pluto. So that's hard aspect to Pluto. And what happens with Mars, since it's a planet that symbolizes action, is every time it touches either Saturn or Pluto this year, it's a revisit to that Saturn-Pluto point that initiated in January. So it's not really a guess from an astrological perspective that every time it moves on those points, it's going to, because as I said, that point in time, first, second week in January, is when basically notes first were given to the United States White House that there was this virus in China. So August, mid-August, late August, those are hot points, still the first wave. Late September through mid-October, resurgence more. And it finally moves on when we get to end of December into mid-January. Doesn't mean it's going to totally go away, but those are going to be hot points of whatever is going on with the virus. By the same token, there's so many other things that have been rising up in the United States at this point in time. Another piece is back to the United States and Donald Trump. And I'm just going to check the chat to make sure, okay, if you're not seeing what I'm seeing, just let me know. And when I talk like this, it's not to make anyone worried or concerned, although because we are a holistic network and Saturn always symbolizes what limits us. So what limits us the most is fear. And there's been a lot of statements about fear in the United States pretty much since, well, since we could discuss many things, but it's just been expanding this millennium. And part of that fear, I think, that's been incubating is the sense that we know things are ending. So there is this innate, inherent sense things are ending. And it's true, things are ending. We are ending a big cycle that is approaching once we get into late December, where we're in a great conjunction that's the air cycle, which I've talked about before, but that's Jupiter and Saturn when we begin 200 years of innovation, new technology, communication, concepts, and we're leaving 200 years of manufacturing and stuff. So we can feel this sense that we are in times of change. And this Mars retrograde, which happens at this kind of the end of this year, right smack in the middle of the US election, really is speaking a lot about, are you ready to make some really profound movement in your life? And as holistic networkers, I think that the most important thing as we look forward to when Mars goes direct, as I said, November 13th, is we look forward to what it is that we're going to be creating, recreating, embracing as warriors of peace, holistic energy, and connection. And because the planet of love and the planet of action are retrograde this year, it's about how do we put love in action? How do we put voices in action that have to do with really transcending into where we want to be going? So I'm going to look one more time at these charts because there's a couple of other things to mention. One of them is that the midpoint of Venus's retrograde dance was at 12 to 13 degrees Gemini, which is right on the, if we look at the chart of when the moon, when Mars goes retrograde, the moon is at 12 degrees Gemini. Now the moon symbolizes in an electional chart, a chart when an event begins, it symbolizes the mood of the people. So I see that point of the moon as being, what are we feeling and what do we really want to take into action? And with all these messages we're getting about what we're supposed to be afraid of, how is it that we feel an empowerment in spite of all the messages of fear? And I saw a Rumi quote the other day, which, a poem rather, and the point of the poem was about how the river is afraid to enter, you know, of its journey to enter the ocean, because then it loses its integrity of being a river. But when it becomes part of the ocean, it becomes part of the whole. Of course, Rumi said it a lot better than I just did. But I think that that is the core of this period in time as we move into, it's not that we're all going to lose our identities, but it is about working more as communities And a particularly hot date is when the Sun and Mars are in opposition on October 13th. And once again, I want to look at the US and Donald Trump again. And that's at 21 degrees Aries that Mars will be at, which is right on the United States Chiron. And Chiron is the astral body in the sky that we call the wounded healer. Chiron is always prevalent in the charts of healers, of artists. It's got to do with people who do the work of healing their own wounds in order to impart healing energy to someone else. And it's usually a continual process. It's like, oh gee, I'm all healed now, I'm good. Now that doesn't happen. So the United States, with Mars at this point, at the retrograde, in the 4th house, so very interesting, because the 4th house is our land, it's our roots. And what's happening now? Statues are being ripped up. The roots of our country are being questioned. And this is all what we're coming to as we go to the Pluto return that will happen for the United States in a couple of years. So Pluto is the higher octave of Mars, because Mars is about how we take action and Pluto's about transformation. So we're in a process of becoming, and I think that whatever happens with WHN as we continue, if we go more virtual, if we widen our community, that's up to all of you as we continue to talk about this. But once we break into little groups, I invite us all to talk about, how do you take action when you're in quarantine, when you're feeling limited? Do you feel a sense of where you want to aim and what you want to do that's different than maybe what you thought you wanted to do 6 months ago? And I promise I will talk about Election Day more, but I'm just going to show this because people keep asking me about it. Once again, interestingly, the moon is in the sign of Gemini. So what have the people been incubating, thinking about with the lessons of the Venus in Gemini? Also, the North Node, which is a point, is in the sign of Gemini now. So we're really, I think a lot of this is about bringing down knowledge into everyday conversation. And that requires vulnerability. That requires people being honest about what they know and what they feel, and not hiding behind a facade. So the question is, what is the mask we're really talking about? So I'm going to see if there's anything in chat. I'm going to stop this. And no. Okay, so I'm going to open this up to, if you know your own horoscope, notice where the Venus retrograde was, so where Gemini falls in your horoscope, and where the Mars in Aries retrograde will fall, because that area of life is speaking a lot about how you're personally affected by these planetary energies slowing down in movement or seeming to go backwards from our perspective. And if you don't know your horoscope, you can send me an email and I'll send you some. Can I talk a bit about the impact of Aries on the planetary energies? So Aries on the planetary energies. So when a planet is in a sign, because the planets are all different They're symbolic in my school of astrology. There's symbols of different parts of the psyche. So when a planet is in the sign of Aries, it takes on a very new energy. It's learning about something new. Aries is always wanting to begin, always fired up and excited about what it's inspired by. And so it's exciting energy. It's also, it can be a bit inflammatory, especially as we look at how it interacts with other planets in the charts of public figures, countries, you personally, people you know. That's why it's valuable to know where Aries lands in your personal horoscope and how this might be affecting you personally. Mars has a 2.5-year cycle, so it's in Aries every 2.5 years. But what's different this year is it's retrograde. So we can do the little groups unless you want to just dialogue and ask questions. Shall we go to breakout rooms? Okay, we're going to go to breakout rooms because Pam wants to have some fun. And so I'm going to create, there's 16 of us. So I'm going to create, ooh, I can create a lot of rooms. I'm going to create 5 rooms so that people can say hello. If you find yourself in a room where you already know these people or you're not really feeling it, you can just hit leave room and you'll bounce into another room. So we can kind of popcorn around. And let's see how it goes. All right, I will see you all presently. And please introduce yourself, network. That's what we're here to do. You'll get a little note that says, come into this room, and you're invited in, and so you go. Hello, I've got people bouncing all over the place, sorry. See, you're muted, so let me unmute you if I can. Huh. Oh, there you go. Hello, Alexandra. There we go. Everybody's coming back. So I ended.
Now, how do we go back to the?
Oh, I'll put you back. But the group I was in was asking me if we could talk more astrology, but they had more questions. So I just wanted to check in.
Yeah.
To see how everybody felt about that, and then we can go back to where we were. If somebody, I was asked, did I not go into 2021 because actually I'm happy to go into 2021 because after this year, I think 2021 will feel a lot easier for a lot of people.
Hey, Pam, excuse me, just at some point, could you talk about, there are 5 retrograde planets right now. Could you talk about that? Okay, thank you.
There's 5 retrograde planets right now. You know, the fact that there's 5 retrograde planets right now is, when we start talking about the outer planets, they're retrograde, depending on the planet, roughly 6 months a year. So it's not really wildly unusual. What's unusual is that we've got the Venus and Mars that were retrograde. And of course, when Mercury's retrograde, people are always kind of interested in that. But as far as the retrogrades themselves go in this period of time, I just think that adds to that sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop. But if you're talking about retrograde planets, Uranus is the planet that's not retrograde as far as the outer planets go. And Uranus is, I'm more interested in the one that's moving kind of unbridled than the ones that are doing the kind of under the surface things. So we've got all these under the surface things going on, which when they go direct, we start to see what's revealed. But Uranus, meanwhile, is direct. And Uranus is the planet that symbolizes change and revolution, and was discovered during American and French revolutions, discovered electricity. All these things were when, so we connect it with innovation and things that are unexpected. And yeah, you know, wake up in the morning and you think, what am I going to find out today? Because it's this kind of wild card energy that's running. But I think it's also, we have to remember that it's in the sign of Taurus. And it's another symbol of what I was talking about earlier, about the ending of the great conjunction cycle of Earth, where basically our finances and where we put a lot of our energy was based on production, manufacturing, and stuff. So with Uranus in Taurus, we're seeing the Earth's response to when things closed down with the pandemic. And the reevaluation of energy and where we invest money is going to be huge when you look at 2021. That's going to be one of the things that, and we're in the process of layers of that starting to dismantle.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the answer about my perspective on the retrogrades.
Thank you.
So
2021, are you?
2021, one of the things that's definitely different is we're going to have, right now, Jupiter is still in the sign of Capricorn, one of Saturn's natural signs, not real comfortable in the sign of Capricorn. And Saturn is retrograde in Capricorn. Jupiter's gone this little delay, which once we get into late fall, catches up with Saturn, moves beyond Saturn in the sign of Aquarius, because Saturn's the slower moving planet. And once that happens, and that'll be 2021, then we start to move ahead with things that have to do with innovation and what do the new communities look like? What does humanity look like? What is it we want? And I think one of the most important lessons that's coming out of this quarantine is that I think people are going to want to communicate more deeply. That surface communication and sort of dropping in and out and all the buzzing around in the 24/7 world, that there's going to be a deepening. There already is. I mean, it's funny, I have clients who tell me that the dating apps, the dating services, they're really courting and spending a lot of time getting to know one another in communication before they even meet. So that's a depth of connection that just people have been going like fast forwarding over everything. And I don't think that's going to be satisfactory to people as we keep moving forward. And for people in the holistic community, I can't stress this enough, and many of you know this, that our greatest activism is meditation and doing inner work. And not that we shouldn't be making connections and working with people, but the focus of the keeping in touch with things that keep us connected to the greater whole is absolutely essential. I think that's part of the Mars in Aries retrograde. And when you look at where is your natural Mars, each of us has Mars somewhere in our horoscope. And so it's in a certain sign. So when it's retrograde, regardless of the fact it's in Aries, it's inviting us to deepen into that connection with how we drive ahead. What car are we using when we move through life? I mean, not a virtual car. Yeah, in a way, I'm talking about the virtual car. What is the vessel in which you move? How do you approach people? How do you dialogue with people? What is it? How do you go after what you want? And in the retrograde, because of the retrograde, I see, going back, like as things are opening up, there'll be a going back and a reevaluation in how we open up. But in a way, if you look at that metaphorically, we can learn so much in how we open up, how we approach someone, how we make overtures for what we desire. There's so much to learn from this little tiny virus that's not even alive, supposedly.
Oh,
But,
really?
yeah, but then again, we could argue everything in the universe is alive. But as far as science is concerned, and Hasita may talk about this better than I, but it needs to engage with something alive in order to become active. It can't become active on its own. So that might have to do with some retrograde symbolism in itself. Any other questions, thoughts?
I was just checking my sample of 2 on the dating apps. They tell me it's changed, but right now not for the better. They said, yeah, people want, benefits quickly because they haven't had any.
No, I hear the reverse. People are very cautious. They want to make sure that, if they're going to spend some time with somebody, they know what they're getting into. But I guess it depends on, I'd say just get out of that conversation.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think it's going both ways, but I think you're right that people, you want to feel each other out and you want to get to know each other. You don't want to waste your time as much.
Yes, that's pretty much what I've heard. So I think, Joan, you wanted to say something?
On that note, and I know people are going to react in a, let me put it this way. They had a Tantra festival. It was pretty international, but it wasn't about how to have sex. It was the spiritual aspects of sexuality. And one of the classes that I took was about beautiful boundaries. And it was something interesting because they did a lot of breathing. And now the subset, so I think is a deepening with the sexuality, because this was pretty amazing. And it wasn't like, oh, this is how you'd make, wasn't what you think. And now they're describing the next festival, I think it starts in 2 days. I don't know, something like wild sex, whatever, but it's not about sex. It's about creating this tremendous energy about what Pamela's saying, how to redefine love. When we hit the 2020, whatever we are, 2021 or what, 2020, that's what I was thinking. It's numerology. People, I believe, were wrong. It is not a 22-year at all. It is up to a 4-year, which is about restrictions and being locked up in a box and budgets. Next year, we hit the 5, which is going to be expansion, which we're going to be celebrating, and taking risks and new things and socializing. But I think with this double two, we've all became more into the partnership. So what Pam is saying, and I believe firmly numerology does connect with astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a beautiful energy because everything's more about community and just the fact that people are being, let's have more sensitivity training. What do these statues mean? How come the cops get a little crazy and blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a beautiful thing to have this sensitivity. So, you know, good for a more deeper level of sex.
I'll tell my
Yeah.
kids.
Firecracker in Aries, so I'm like talking to a guy and we're just talking, no Zooms. It's like, oh, all right.
Okay, but we know, I mean, so much of, and part of the connection with doing the work and meditation and better well-being and holistic always distills down to self-love. And we see so many wounded people who are attack because they aren't starting from that root. So therefore, it's difficult for them to move to caring about other people and making those connections. So I'm just curious, Alexandra, do you have anything you'd like to say to the group? I know you do a lot of incredibly deep work. Are you, what I was talking about, is there something you felt or want to ask another question about?
Well, one thing that, I mean, at the end of last year, I was having a feeling that something really huge, not good, was coming up, just very strong. And I didn't know what it was, and I never would have thought it would be a pandemic, right? And so here it is. And I just have that feeling that in around November, it's not good, that area in the fall.
Right.
And so is that basically, does that correspond to what you're?
It does. The thing about, especially for the United States, and of course, when I talk to people internationally, what we keep reiterating is the United States has just such a big effect on the rest of the world. The election is very meaningful. And that election chart, which I showed you earlier, basically Mercury goes direct. The last time Mercury went direct on a United States election was 2000.
Oh,
And yeah, and also Mars is retrograde. So, and also there's a lunation beforehand where Uranus is active. So basically, the United States election is a total. I'll be amazed if at the end of the day we know who won the election. It will be contested. I'm still not 100% sure, quite honestly, who the candidates will be. I know we think we know, but there's so much wild card energy. So yeah, this fall is volatile, and that's why it's so very important for us to be critically aware that we are in a tsunami of change, and you know, you can't contain that, but you can ride it and do what you can to protect yourself. And the main, like, loud and clear, I think, is getting blasted off the charts these days is denial. There's so much denial of so many layers and so many ways that people use denial as an antidote for everything. I don't want to see it. I don't want to look at it. I don't want to, you know, I'd rather act as though it's not there. That's not mine. That's not his. I mean, and it's time for accountability. And the thing is, anyone who's been through anything that had to do with a coming of awareness of personal denial that was in some way negative for their well-being. All the 12-step programs, of course, are designed around becoming aware of denial. So I certainly have had my journey with denial. And as we become aware of it, we become more self-aware. We become more, we invite in the parts of ourself we're not as comfortable with. And that makes us more whole and ability to love ourselves more and to love other people more. So one of the things that's so difficult of today's times, which I broach very gently with people, including my husband, who's usually yelling at the television monitor these days, is we want to send out love. It's really hard to send love in the direction of certain people. Absolutely abysmal. But then at least ask ourselves, what is it about that person, that energy that I find so hateful and distasteful? And take it back home and see, is there something I need to work with in that in some capacity? And it can be very empowering to do that. So anyway, any other questions? Should we divide? You want to have some fun in the little groups again?
Pam, I was just wondering if I could just add something.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say that, you know, I do think that whatever's going on is going to be international in the fall. But everything is going to be better by January, the end of January, February. Does that correspond with astrology?
Yes. Yes, because then, yeah.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. Things are going to be better. That it really is just a matter of, you know, keeping your own energy high, you know, just even if there isn't a lot of sunshine around, just find that little speck of it and stay there. And the things are going to get better. That's what I want to say.
That's very good. Absolutely. And we know we have to we have to go through these transitions in order to become whole. So it is, you're right, it is global, as the pandemic has, and also, yeah, and I speak and write about this too on one of my videos. Because 2020 is the way it is, and the messages just keep expanding. George Floyd's death, it was stunning to me how it became an international cry and really brought home how many countries felt, how many people in different countries felt that this was a message for them as well. So that's the kind of fast movements we will continue to witness and see and be a part of, be ideally an anchoring part for our families, our loved ones, or our clients. That's what, you know, that's important to do. And it's also okay to say, yeah, I'm afraid too, because I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, which is what I always say to people who ask me about the election. I can't tell you exactly. Maybe the night before when I'm closer and I know what everything is. But right now, so many things can still change. It's that's just where we are. So, so I'm going to put us in breakout rooms again, just so everybody can network and say hello to one another. As I said, you can leave the room. I want to make sure, I'm going to make sure everybody's unmuted, because I did that with one group and they ended up in the rooms and couldn't talk to one another. So that's unacceptable. Okay. Hasta luego.
Hold here.
So I hope you all got to finish up your chats. You should have gotten a little warning that said this room is closing in 60 seconds. So we'll continue to work this. Some people are smiling, so it might have been a good experience.
Yeah.
But let me know. I mean, now's when we want to, obviously this is for you, networking for you. If you don't want to tell me now, you can send us, Kathy or me, an email. We're going to continue to, as Kathy said, for those who came on later, we'll start to reinstate beginning at 6:30 as of next meeting, August. Yeah, so that you have a half-hour networking checking in if you want to do that, because then when the speaker begins at 7, well, you know, the astrology introduction and then the meditation and then the speaker, we want to make sure we have enough time for our speaker. And in August, we'll have Brooke Rudolph, who's a member, who's Instagram for social media. And if you just want to say hello to people, or if you want to use it as a marketing education tool, share what you do. She's got ideas on that. And more the business side of networking, which although it could be fun too. I mean, my daughter had me get an Instagram account years ago, and I just haven't gotten into the groove of it. But she's like, you take good pictures. Why don't you do this? But
No,
I
Instagram's great for my painting. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
It's really been good. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, so that'll be in August. And then in September, I'm going to introduce you all to Julian, who's on. And Julian, you want to say, you're muted right now. You want to say a couple of words about what you might be offering?
No, I'm just laughing because I was slouching. I was like, I better sit up straight.
You look fabulous.
Thank you. Well, it's going to be a pleasure to meet everybody again and see everyone in September. I use personal narratives and creative narratives in my storytelling work, whether it's for professional development or just personal enrichment. And what I was speaking with Kathy about is, I think because everyone in our network here are healers, it would be really an important thing to do a pause in September and really have a moment to maybe capture a compelling story or start to create one that really symbolizes what we've experienced or maybe some lessons learned. Now, in the tight time frame, we might not have the luxury of crafting a full thing, but if we can do a little bit and just start the dialogue and start connecting, I think that would be a wonderful experiences. Because the interesting thing about storytelling is once we start to look at ourselves a little bit differently, it's amazing what we unearth and start to remember and appreciate. So I think that's really my goal, is that a little bit of self-appreciation. All of you are giving all the time. Cynthia's been doing these wonderful networks. Kathy has been doing these great experiences with everybody. It's about just taking a pause and appreciating and regenerating, very much what Alexandra said, you know, feeding your own energy so you can go back out. So all of you deserve a pat on the back and a little bit of recognition. So that's how we're going to play with our stories in September. And the right story will show up is an expression I heard from somebody at a conference I just was. You know, I'm the type of person when I have to do something creative, I'm like, I've got nothing. And then suddenly that story appears and you're like, oh, you have something. So trust yourself. Guaranteed, I know you have a good story to tell yourself or appreciate. So think of it as a little sample of something to germinate among yourselves that you can build on. Because once we end our meeting, it's not saying you can't work on it anymore. That could be something as a very rich sharing that can happen offline. So think about it as a starting point, to just use it to appreciate and think about things and start the essence of a story for yourselves. And there can be sometimes short stories that are only a couple of sentences. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you can, like we even see in our marketing with commercials, and then you can work your epic form maybe offline or visit in different ways. So we can tell the same story in many, many different ways. A snapshot and then a bigger version.
Very interesting. So we create the story while you're with you, or we bring it before?
You could have something that pops in your head that you'd like to build on, or maybe in that moment you're in the class, you might switch gears and say, you know what, in the next few seconds, something came to my mind. I'm going to just play with that. And then I hope to be as graceful as Pamela when we do breakout rooms, that I get you more, like why I'm smiling before is I was like, I'm always happy when I come back from cyberspace and I'm ended up where I'm supposed to be. You know, like I still haven't lost the enthusiasm after all these months of Zooming. Like I hear the doorbell, I get real excited. And then when I get back and in my room, I'm always happy.
In October, we're going to have Grisela Ramos do a talk on Akashic Records. And I had a reading with her that was incredible. And then she gives you 21 days worth of homework that you have to do.
Ooh, I love homework.
In December, I'm hoping to get, some of you may know Michelle Levy, and she does this beautiful presentation on the labyrinth and using the labyrinth in self-care.
She's wonderful.
All right.
Yeah.
And do you have anyone for November, or did I just miss it?
No, me,
no.
right?
Oh, okay.
You know, maybe you might
I
want to
think-
do it on numerology or
Yeah, I'm going to be teaching a class in numerology, so maybe that will work. And look at the numbers for the. Yeah, I'll write to a couple. I'll send it all out to you.
Okay, thank
I
you.
can laugh.
That sounds like fun, John.
Thank you very much.